Thank you so very much for staying in with us. We're all set to bring to you our keynote address now. A very, very warm welcome to Mr. Kailash Satyarthi, Nobel Peace Laureate. Mr. Kailash Satyarthi is internationally acclaimed for a child rights activist, which he has been working tirelessly over for 4 decades now. His interventions are spread across 140 countries across the globe. His work won him the Nobel Peace Prize in the year 2014. We look forward to hearing and learning from him. A very, very warm welcome to you, sir. And I'm sure that our audience members are really going to learn a lot from the various anecdotes that you'll be sharing with us here on this platform. So a very warm welcome to you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Isha. At the outset, I would like to say that it's my utmost privilege and honor to address the real heroes in this pandemic time. Doctors and health workers are not only the saviors of hundreds of thousands of lives, but they have proven that they are the real leader. They are the real human being. I have come across many incidents and I have spoken to several medical professionals, doctors, nurses, etc. in last 1.5 years. And I felt that they have worked and still working with a divine power. Sometimes 24 hours, sometimes 36 hours without sleep, they worked to save others' lives. I have come across some doctors whose old parents, spouses, or children even were suffering from pandemic, but they themselves put their utmost attention to their patients in hospitals. I salute you. And I would also like to thank Economic Times Group for acknowledging and honoring these doctors today. Dear friends, we have seen that this pandemic has not only been a health crisis in the world, it was also an economic crisis. And I kept on saying that this has been the crisis of civilization, because our way of life, our way of thinking, our collective behaviors and actions, decisions, political as well as social and personal decisions are bound to change. And that's why the long-term impact is crisis of civilization that has to be dealt with utmost priority and depth. I would like to begin with a Ved mantra, and it is from Yajurved, and it says, Pashyem Sardah Satam, Jivem Shardah Satam, Shrunayam Sharda Satam, Prabharbam Sharda Shatam, Adina Shyam Sarda Shatam, Bhuyas Sharda Satat. The Indian wisdom had an aspiration and a conviction, a resolve that 100 autumns we may see. 100 autumns we can live and listen and learn. And in 100 autumns, we have to live with dignity without any misery. We do not want to live in miserable conditions. And it says that this way, we also resolve to live even longer than 100 autumns. And when this conviction comes, it is not simply a prayer. This conviction comes due to the presence of the saviors of their lives, who treat them and make their life better so that one can see and listen and hear. That is not possible without the doctors, without the surgeons, without the medical professionals. In different way and different times, but the reality is that the doctors are the saviors of lives and make this conviction, these prayers in reality. And therefore, today, we are all fortunate having so many compassionate, so many competent and hardworking doctors and other professionals, medical professionals, healthcare workers in the country in this difficult time and as well as in the world. Dear sisters and brothers, I am talking on two issues. One is compassion, and the second one is our right to health. How can we improve the health infrastructure and so on? But I would begin with something what I call compassion that has to be globalized. In my Nobel acceptance speech, I called upon the world that we have already globalized markets, economies, technologies, information, data, and so on. This is the time to globalize compassion. And when I talk of compassion, it's not a religious issue. It's not a religious connotation from any religion. Of course, all the religions and all the revolutions and all the efforts of social change in the world were possible due to compassion. And in fact, the seed, the source, the first spark of all these initiatives was compassion. But when we say globalized compassion, means we have to globalize different professionals, different fields of life, globalized economy, globalized politics, and compassionate economy, compassionate politics. That has to be converted into compassionate economy and politics. And similarly, the compassionate healthcare, compassionate medical support. And that means compassionate doctors, compassionate nurses, compassionate hospitals. I would also like to emphasize that the doctors are guardians, custodians, or caretakers of not only the lives and health of people, they are the guardians of hope and trust. People see not only patients, but also their relatives and friends and family, and everyone has faith in one person during the time of crisis, and that is doctor. During the time, the crisis and difficulty, that is judge, or parents. Parents have given us birth. So we somehow see some resilience with God. I don't know who has seen the God, but when you wanted to feel the existence of God, you can see who has given you the birth, and that is your parents. Similarly, who is going to protect your life and your health? That is doctor. That is, there are nurses, they are healthcare givers or caretakers. And also, when we face some exploitation or injustice or any kind of agony, we have faith and trust and hope in the judiciary. So the place of a medical professional is not just a robot. You are not a robot, my dear sisters, my dear brothers. You are not money minting machines. You are not simply the government employees or the employees working with some big hospital. You are more than that. You are the custodian of hope and trust that is much more deeper, that is much more spiritual. And that goes beyond the religions, that goes beyond the languages and caste and regions and so on. And hence, when I say compassionate medical profession, compassionate doctors, I would like to to tell here that we should not, mix it with two other things. Sympathy and empathy are different than compassion. Sympathy is a way of treating the people. Sometimes you feel the suffering of others and you treat well. That is always good. But that is the outermost circle of this emotion, of this feeling. The second is empathy. But in case of empathy, you become the co-sufferer sometimes. If you cannot see the change in the suffering of other person, you suffer and then you feel burnout, or you feel, pessimist or depressed, because you cannot solve the problem. You cannot solve all problems. So that is empathy. But why I say that doctors and medical professionals have to be compassionate, because compassion is the feeling of suffering of others as your own suffering. That is just the feeling. You're not just suffering it, but compassion is the feeling of others as your own suffering, with a drive to take action to alleviate that suffering, that pain. So that makes you someone who takes the initiative, someone who leads the way, someone who has courage, someone who is a problem solver, someone who wanted to see that the things are getting better. So it is not a pity. It is not even a charity. Compassion, as people think that this is a notion which explains more religiously, or mercy or pity. It's not the case. It is also a biological thing, which is so. Sometimes we can feel that when we are born, the relationship between the mother and newly born child, or the newly born child and mother, is more neurobiological or psychological, emotional, but it has very direct relation. It is not something which is taught by any priest of any religion to mother or to that child. There is another biological connotation of empathy, and that is deeper in compassion, and that is the mirror neuron, what they call the mirror neuron. That was this whole phenomena was invented by the Italian doctors back in, I think, mid-90s or late 90s, and they have done some experiments with the monkeys and later on with human beings, and they found that there is special, that there are brain cells in our brain or around our brain, and that gives you that feeling of emotion, and that is the mirror neuron, which makes you feel the suffering of others and eventually your own suffering, and then you become the solver of that suffering. I will give you two examples of the compassionate behavior. But before that, I will say that there are so many studies. Stanford University did a very, very good study. I read it, and I have spoken to some of the medical professionals when I was after addressing the American Doctors Association or something some years ago. And I could recall those conversations that the compassionate behavior, I'm not talking empathetic behavior. Empathy is important, but sometimes you co-suffer and you leave it there. But in compassion, you become the solver of that problem. So you have a strong mind to cope up with those situations of suffering of others as well as your own suffering. And then those doctors or those neuroscientists advised after the studies, and this particular study in Stanford, that the compassionate behavior of doctors has helped in many ways, like reducing the post-operative pain, in reducing the number of days or weeks in hospitalization, less medication. Even in some cases, it has helped in boosting the immunity of the patients. So it's not only the psychological thing, but it has very direct biological impact on the patients if the doctors who are treating them are compassionate. So these are some of those things. And we know there are other studies which prove that the heart has 100 times that creates 100 times more electro waves than the mind, and 5,000 more stronger magnetic or electromagnetic waves together than the mind. So when you talk to patients, somebody told me that there are 3 T's. How much time you spend in consultation in the beginning, on the first day, and later on when you meet? Of course, you live in stress, you live in so many things, many uncertainties are there. You cannot, gauge the amount of work you are going to have. So all these things happen. But in spite of that, if you are able to spend some time with more time with your patients in a compassionate manner, of course, the knowledge and competency and skills are needed, but your behavior with compassion, that is not only a kind of training that how you have to act to be good to, but it comes on your own, as it comes for your own child, your own mother, your father or sister or brother. If that kind of things come, it's not a pity or mercy you are doing to that patient, but you feel that that is happening with you and you are going to solve it. And that gives a tremendous positive results in the care and treatment. I could recall an incident that 3 years ago when we organized a long march from Kanyakumari to Kashmir against sexual abuse of children and rape of children. I met number of parents, but number of young children. My wife Sumedha and I met with this little girl in a hospital in Delhi. When she was returning from school, her bus driver or the small minibus driver has raped her. And she was in a very bad condition and hospitalized. After a few days, after her surgery and other things, we went. And she was so traumatized. She was such a beautiful girl. Her mother insisted her husband to bring her from a village near Aligarh for the study of that girl. But when I was talking to that 6-year-old girl, she did not want to listen one single word about teacher or education or school. When I didn't know, I spoke to her. I was just laughing and talking, and the doctor was also standing beside me and the mother was sitting. But I said that you are good, fine, you will go to school. And she screamed like anything. And I found that I'm so stupid. But slowly I said that there are so many good people around you. Whom do you like most? And she looked at a lady doctor and she said that she is the best. So I said, do you want to become like her? She said, yes, I wanted to. Yes, yes, yes. She smiled. And then I asked the doctor that, how did you become the doctor? So she said that I studied hard and I could do it. Within few minutes, the lady told, the girl told to her mother that I wanted to become a doctor and that's why I would like to go to school. That courage, that faith, that hope, just one doctor radiated. I've also met another girl of the same age in a small village in Madhya Pradesh. She was treated in a hospital. She was so traumatized. She did not want to talk about the doctor. And she could not talk anything. And then I learned that she had just one bad memory, and it was about how she was treated. Nobody was taking care of her because they were very, very poor family, and she had to lie down in the corridor and so on and so forth. I'm not going to give that example. But that is the difference, that how the compassionate treatment given by the doctor can help a lot, and that has to be globalized. That is something which will pay you as a great human being at the end of the day and pay the whole country. The final thing in a minute I would like to tell here, that we have seen that the world has suffered as one, but it has not suffered equally. India's constitution does not have right to health as fundamental right. some years ago, only 15 years ago or so, until 2000, no, 20 years ago, 2001, education was not a fundamental right. And people like me organized the long marches, brought politicians and parliament members, and build a kind of strong support to amend the constitution and make education as fundamental right. We have succeeded, and we have seen the result in last, say, 15 years or so, when the right to education became a law, so not only the constitutional amendment. Now we have seen the collapse of not only infrastructure, medical infrastructure, hospitals, beds and oxygens and whatnot, all these things I need not to tell you, and you have suffered a lot. So I have written to the Prime Minister of India, and I have raised this issue, that, or every single parliament members, that this is the time that we have to have a separate, strong provision in the constitution where health is a fundamental right. Though it has been explained in the context of right to life with dignity by the Supreme Court in several judgments, and one of the judgments came in my case of bonded laborers and child bonded laborers. But this is something which we have to think now. It will help in giving a kind of sense of hope and sense of positivity and confidence among the ordinary people in the country. We have so many good schemes. Ayushman scheme is quite an ambitious scheme. But when it comes to the right to health, all these things would be more geared up and stronger. Health infrastructure will be stronger. Doctors and medical professionals will also get different kind of treatment and support, because they are they would be responsible. But they also would be authorized for constitutionally, legally, to ensure this right to health for everyone. And it will help in increase of infrastructure, but also in budgetary allocations and spending on investment in healthcare systems in the country. Trainings and high quality trainings of medical professionals would also be one of the results, as we saw in case of education system over the 15 years, as I said. So this is something I wanted to bring to your consideration and your support also. I'm not a politician, so I cannot think in that direction what is the case or not. But as someone who had felt what has happened in last 1 year, especially in April, May of this year, we have to find some more bolder solutions, more innovative solutions, and more sustainable solutions to the problem, the pandemic. And this is not the end of the things. Nobody knows third wave will come or not. Some say it has already came, but other pandemics or other virus or other things can come later on, and we have to have more stronger preparedness and more professional preparedness for them. Once again, I thank you all, my dear friends, and I will conclude with a 30 seconds story. When I was receiving the Nobel Prize, I lost my speaking notes. So I remembered a story which I read in my childhood. There was a heavy fire broken out in jungle. All animals, including King Lion, were rushing for a safer place. And Lion suddenly noticed that there was a tiny hummingbird flying straight towards the flame and fire. And she was flying. So Lion shouted, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" She said that I am going to extinguish this fire. She said, "Because I was born and grew up in this jungle." He asked, "How come?" And she answered, "Look at my beak. I am carrying a drop of water. I am not going to live like that." Dear doctors, dear friends, you are the pioneers, you are the leaders, you are the heroes. You are the inspiration for the whole country. And all of you have that drop of water in your beak. extinguish this fire of hopelessness and negativity and pessimism in the country. And I am sure you will too. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Satyarthi. And what high notes you gave us at the back end. Have the right spirits in your mind is what we look forward to. Sir, I'd like to request you to please stay on. Our audience has had such a fantastic time listening to you. They sent in a few questions, and it'll be a pleasure if you could please answer those.
Sure. If they are, I said them, they are my heroes, so I cannot say no to them.
Absolutely, sir. In fact, you shared so many stories with us. You shared a story about this little girl who you met in the hospital, and she looked at the health worker and said, "This is my future. This is what I want to become." So I'd like to know from you, sir, you've had 40 years of experience working with children who've had various experiences in their lives that have not been very positive. How do you personally guide them that the future is bright, they can look forward to changing their lives for themselves and they can make their lives better?
Well, I don't guide them because I'm not a priest nor a leader or politician, but I feel that I'm one of them, and they also feel that I'm one of them. So that is my relationship with every child. When I gave up my career as electrical engineer back in 1981, and I started freeing children, the first incident when I freed a group of children and a 15-year-old girl who was about to be sold to a brothel, who was born and grew up in slavery at a brick kiln. And when we successfully rescued her and others, I saw a divine, eternal smile of freedom on her face. And I also saw the tears rolling down on her mother's cheek. And then I could feel that I'm witnessing the glimpse of God. I don't know where the God lives, but if God does not live on the smile of freedom of an innocent child, innocent girl, where can be the God or Allah or whatever, Ishwar, Bhagwan, kahan rahega? So that was a liberative moment for me. And I felt that I'm not liberating them. I tell you, I underline here that each time when I liberate a child, I feel that they are liberating me from inside, and I am doing some worthy or some meaningful work in my life, and that has been my inspiration. So I travel with them. That is the journey of compassion, where I feel their sufferings and they feel my sufferings, and we together wanted to solve that suffering of each other. And when they see me working, they learn on their own, or my colleagues, all my colleagues. It is not just Kailash, Satyarthi. We have 400 people working in the organization and thousands of volunteers and supporters. So we live and play. I am now in Balashram. This is a rehabilitation center near Jaipur. And in the morning, I was walking and talking and playing with children. In the evening, I will play with them. And we dance with them almost every other day. And we sing songs together. That is the learning, actually, because we have to learn from children. We have to learn the simplicity, truth, innocence, honesty, forgiveness. All these things are traits of childhood, which we have to learn from children.
So it really is a learning experience each day. So you also spoke about the journey of compassion and how doctors need to be all the more sensitive when they're dealing with children as patients, and children who've had past experiences that haven't really been pleasant. So what is the one message that you'd like to give to doctors who work with children on a daily basis? How can they really keep sensitivities in mind?
Well, I can say one thing, that they are very special. When they have chosen this path, this was the path to bring life, to bring light, bring health. So this is not simply a career. This is more than that, as I said before. So they have to believe in themselves. They represent humanity in true sense. They represent life in true sense. And that gives them enormous courage. They represent the images of God, which makes our life better, and they make our life better. So the self-realization that they are born as special, and whatever they are doing is very special. No one else can do. I cannot do what they do.
Yes, absolutely. Doctors' profession is one of the most toughest, and they are kept next to God. They're known as the inspirer of hope, which brings me to my last question. A very, very short questions answer that we look forward to hearing from you. That what, as a child rights activist, have you observed, and what is that one message you'd like to give to the younger generation out there?
Well, the younger generation, I have full faith in the young people because their minds are purer than our minds. Their worldview is much more sharper and clear, and they are much more equipped with knowledge through their computers and so many other gadgets and so on, artificial intelligence. So they can definitely make a difference. And they should also feel that compassion for not only for human beings, but also for planet, for animals, for everyone, because they are suffering. If Mother Earth suffers, then we suffer. So we have to have that kind of relationship of compassion with Mother Earth. And finally, I would say, especially for the young doctors, India needs doctors. India needs mental health caregivers for children in our country. 4 children are sexually abused and raped every hour. 4 children. They are our children. They are your children. They are my children. And they need all kinds of support. Medical health, justice, there's different thing, but mental health support is the key for those girls who had to undergo the trauma for whole of their life and the social stigma and taboos and so on and so forth. So they should be the doctors for children and doctors for their children.
Thank you so very much. To really take this profession to an all new level. It's been a pleasure listening to you, and we wish you all the very best along with your team as you continue to change lives for the better. Thank you for joining us, sir. Sir, he's just joining us. In fact, it's an absolute honor that we now welcome all our guests to our chief guest address. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you Shri Ashwini Kumar Chaubeji, Minister of State for Health and Family Welfare, member of the Lok Sabha, a veteran politician, a visionary indeed. He was accredited to have built 11,000 toilets for minority and below poverty line families under the Swachh Bharat mission. He is the one who thought of the slogan, which is घर घर में हो शौचालय का निर्माण तभी होगा लाडली बेटियों का कल्याण. This was a hit in Bihar, and he, along with people from many castes and religion, availed government provided subsidy to build toilets and really move forward in that direction. It's an absolute pleasure that we are here to welcome you, sir. An honor indeed, as I now present to you Shri Ashwini Kumar Chaubeji, Minister of State for Health and Family Welfare, member of Lok Sabha. We welcome you, sir.